A ring of ripples is generated when a stone is thrown into water. Several rings of ripples are generated when several stones are thrown into water. But just one ring of ripples is generated when 10 stones are thrown into water within 1 second. It is about frequency.
A recent research has revealed that more than 60,000 species of trees are available globally. The BCGI, Botanical Gardens Conservation International, a charity that compiled the list of trees on the basis of data gathered from its network of 500 members organizations. The researchers claim to have collected information over a period of 2 years from sources including over 500 published contents and 80 experts in the BCGL's network. The data will be kept updated with the discovery of new species or the extinction of some, said the researchers. All the data required for the world's trees is now available in one database, thanks to Global Tree Search.
A University of Canberra student has launched the nation's first father-led literacy project to encourage fathers to become more involved in their children's literacy. Julia Bocking's Literacy and Lads project aims to increase the number of fathers participating as literacy helpers in K-1 school reading programs at Queanbeyan primary schools. Having worked as a literacy tutor with teenagers, she saw the need for good attitudes towards reading to be formed early on, with the help of more male role models. A male that values reading sets a powerful role model, particularly for young boys, who are statistically more likely to end up in remedial literacy programs, she said. Sherbet powder is a mix of baking soda and citric acid. When it is mixed with water in your mouth, an endothermic reaction occurs, taking heat energy from your mouth and making it feel cooler. This process is endothermic, taking heat energy from the surroundings and cooling the injured part of your body. In this way, the cold pack acts as an ice pack.
You must take account of how many marks are available for each part when you answer it. Even if you think you can write more, don't spend 15 minutes answering a part worth only 5 marks. Leave space at the end of your answer and come back to it if you have time to spare later. And if you can't think of an answer to some part, leave a space and move on to the next part. Don't write about something else if you don't know the correct answer. This is just a waste of your valuable time and the examiners.
Charles Darwin was born on February 12, 1809, into a rich and powerful family. His paternal grandfather was Erasmus Darwin, a famous scientist who came up with his own theory of evolution, while his maternal grandfather was Joseph Wedgwood of pottery fame. Despite this, for the first decades of his life, Darwin failed to distinguish himself, first dropping out of medical studies in Edinburgh because he hated the sight of blood, and subsequently entering Cambridge to study for the profession of clergyman very much a second option. Yet Darwin was gaining great skill as an amateur naturalist, and it was this that allowed him to seize the opportunity presented when he was offered an unpaid position as scientist on board the Beagle, a naval surveying ship bound for the farthest corners of the globe. The 5-year voyage was the making of Darwin, providing him with the wealth of observations of the natural world that established him as one of the foremost scientists of his age and provided the raw material for his revolutionary theory. Financial literacy is an essential skill for individuals of all ages. Understanding concepts like budgeting, saving, and investing can help individuals manage their money effectively. It empowers people to take control of their finances and plan for a secure future. This allows them to make informed decisions about their investments and financial goals.
Hip-hop emerged as a reaction to the gang culture and violence of the South Bronx in the 1970s and daily. Experiences of poverty, racism, exclusion, crime, violence, and neglect. It necessarily embodies and values resilience, understanding, community, and social justice. Without these, hip-hop culture would never have been, and it is because these values remain at its core that hip-hop is such a powerful agent of positive social change around the world. Yet, the hip-hop project is not yet free from these difficult circumstances.
If you're dealing with bugs and the landlord isn't addressing the issue, there are steps you can take. You can report the problem to local government authorities, who can send professionals to handle it. Alternatively, tenants have the option to tackle the issue themselves with appropriate methods and tools. This proactive approach ensures that tenants can maintain a healthy and pest-free living environment. Some students say that they need complete quiet to read and study. Others study best in crowded, noisy rooms because the noise actually helps them concentrate. The point is, you should know the level of noise that is optimal for your own studying. However, one general rule for all students is that the television seems to be more of a distraction than music or other background noise, so leave the TV off when you are reading or studying. Also, don't let yourself distracted by computer games, email, or internet surfing.
Scientists have known for over a decade that the West Antarctic ice sheet has been losing mass and contributing to sea level rise. Its eastern neighbor is, however, 10 times larger and has the potential to raise the global sea level by some 50 meters. Despite its huge size and importance, conflicting results have been published on the recent behavior of the East Antarctic ice sheet. A study led by a group of NASA scientists that was published in 2015 suggested that this part of Antarctica was gaining so much mass that it compensated for the losses in the West. Although usually remembered today as a philosopher, Plato was also one of ancient Greece's most important patrons of mathematics. Inspired by Pythagoras, he founded his academy in Athens in 387 BC, where he stressed mathematics as a way of understanding more about reality. In particular, he was convinced that geometry was the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. The sign above the academy entrance read, "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here."
While Aboriginal people have long inhabited the area, miners first moved to Coober Pedy in 1916 after the discovery of opal in the surrounding rocks. As a result of the intense heat, a number of miners living in town have chosen to live underground. This has continued with much of the modern town being built underground. Among the local public buildings found underground are 3 churches, a bookstore, an art gallery, a bar, and hotels. Opals can be seen embedded in the walls of some of these hotel rooms.
So now that you've completed the research project, what do? I know you won't want to hear this, but your work is still far from done. In fact, this final stage, writing up your research, may be one of the most difficult. Developing a good, effective, and concise report is an art form in itself. And in many research projects, you will need to write multiple reports that present the results at different levels of detail for different audiences.
The natural structure found within leaves could improve the performance of everything from rechargeable batteries to high-performance gas sensors, according to an international team of scientists. The researchers have designed a porous material that utilizes a vascular structure, such as that found in the veins of a leaf, and could make energy transfers more efficient. The material could improve the performance of rechargeable batteries, optimizing the charge and discharge process and relieving stresses within the battery electrodes, which, at the moment, limit their lifespan. The same material could be used for high-performance gas sensing or for catalysis to break down organic pollutants in water. Researchers need to understand why different forms of locomotion evolved. Long-held assumptions, such as the need for energy efficiency, have already been overturned. Similarly, legged robots struggle to deploy different gaits, just as roboticists struggle to enumerate them. But variation of movement is important too. Such an ankle brace holds you back if you try to skip, gallop, or skitter.
The people and events of the past can only be understood when viewed within the larger context in which they existed. That is not possible when historical events or topics are isolated and extracted from the web of historic time to serve some other curricular purpose. The value of history also depends upon the chronological presentation of events through time. It is only through a chronological survey that students can begin to understand the process of social and cultural change, which is one of the principal purposes of history.
The Earth just had the hottest month in recorded history, and it's even worse than normal. The record comes in a run of unprecedentedly hot months. Not only does it break through the all-time record set a year before, it also continues a now 10-month-long streak of months that are the hottest ever according to NASA data. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration calculates temperatures slightly differently.
To celebrate his first publication, Frost had a book of 6 poems privately printed. 2 copies of Twilight were made, one for himself and one for his fiancée. Over the next 8 years, however, he succeeded in having only 13 more poems published. During this time, Frost sporadically attended Dartmouth and Harvard, earned a living teaching school, and later worked on a farm in Derry, New Hampshire. But in 1912, discouraged by American magazines' constant rejection of his work, he took his family to England, where he found more professional success.
Some psychologists believe that independent, peer-reviewed research in the decades since the MBTI was devised has provided something better than Myers-Briggs. They champion the notion of the Big Five personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Of these, only one trait is closely shared with the MBTI: extroversion. Myers-Briggs does not focus on neuroticism, or indeed any similarly negative trait, which may point to one of the reasons why the criticisms lobbed at the test by modern science have yet to undermine its popularity. As Adam Grant says, going around telling people that they're neurotic and disagreeable will not win you any friends.
Playwrights come to their craft with different aesthetic sensibilities. They create recognizable worlds with troubling relevance to human behavior and social themes. Others dismiss the illusion of the real to engage us in political arguments or absurdist metaphors. Thornton Wilder and Tennessee Williams, on the one hand, and Bertolt Brecht and Samuel Beckett on the other, are playwrights with very different approaches to empathy and aesthetic distance. However, these writers have in common their means of artistic expression, the play.
A healthy school setting gives all students the best chance to learn and grow. Vaccines are very important to this effort. They protect children from getting and spreading diseases that can make them very sick. For this reason, we require children aged 2 months to 18 years old who are entering or attending childcare, public school, or private school be vaccinated against certain diseases.
Totalitarianism is a political and social concept that explains a form of government where the state has all control over the civilians. Such government assumes full power without any limitations. As put by Juan Linz, a totalitarian scholar, the three main factors of a totalitarianism government are a monistic center of power, an ideology developed, justified and pursued by the leadership, and mass participation in political and social goals encouraged and even demanded by that same leadership. Throughout the 20th century, the manifestation of totalitarianism was an extreme measure of harsh political occurrences.
Sometime about 1.5 million years ago, some forgotten genius of the hominid world did an unexpected thing. He, or very possibly she, took one stone and carefully used it to shape another. The result was a simple teardrop-shaped hand axe, but it was the world's first piece of advanced technology. It was so superior to existing tools that soon others were following the inventor's lead and making hand axes of their own. Eventually, whole societies existed that seemed to do little else.
Gender-type toy play leads to the promotion of different skills in boys and girls, with girls practicing communal roles and boys practicing agentic roles. This guides children's activities in accordance with gender stereotypes and thus restricts their individual development potential. Whereas play with stereotypically masculine toys, such as blocks and toy soldiers, is generally associated with the development of spatial skills and mere aggressive behavior. Playing with stereotypically feminine toys, such as baby dolls and stuffed animals, is associated with more nurturing behavior. Playing with popular dolls, such as fashion Barbies, is ever associated with a narrowing of perceived career options in girls. In general, strongly gender-type toys are less supportive of the development of children's physical, cognitive, and artistic skills than are gender-neutral or moderately gender-type toys. Therefore, playing predominantly with same gender-type toys limits the development of children's action repertoires in accordance with gender stereotypes and thus contributes to the perpetuation of gender stereotypes.
Don't expect a straightforward answer from Shanati Gay about the authenticity or ever the existence of what was promoted as the earliest version of the fifth and final book of the Jewish Torah, known to Christians as the Book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament. As an author who spent years trying to unravel a juicy mystery and get it down on paper, Tegay wants you to read his book, The Lost Book of Moses, The Hunt for the World's Oldest Bible, to find the answer. But at a talk on Wednesday, the writer, journalist, and fellow offered listeners an enticing peek, describing how he landed on the story of the mysterious manuscript and about his years trying to track down the document. From the author's description on, it was a wild Indiana Jones-type ride that included a competition to find the relic, false starts, dead ends, trips to faraway places, and an ultimate breakthrough close to home. O'Keeffe never formally recorded her theories about art. She did, however, leave a long trail of interviews and letters that reveal how she approached her painting practice and the rituals, experiences, and environments that inspired her. Correspondence with her husband, photographer Alfred Stieglitz, in particular, offers a raw, honest glimpse into O'Keeffe's creative mind. The two exchanged 25,000 pages of letters between 1915 and 1946, during which time she found her voice as an artist. First, through her flower paintings, and later, through landscapes and surrealistic still lifes inspired by her mountainous, skull-studded surroundings in New Mexico.
The global market for electrical and electronic equipment continues to expand, while the lifespan of many products becomes shorter. The current global production of e-waste is estimated to be 20 to 25 million tons per year, with most e-waste being produced in Europe, the United States, and Australasia. In Europe, e-waste is increasing at 3 to 5% a year, almost 3 times faster than the total waste stream. Developing countries are also expected to triple their e-waste production over the next 5 years.
People didn't know pandas well. Now, people can attach a GPS to them. This GPS can transmit data every couple of hours for up to 2 years. Then it is found 5 pandas' habitats sometimes overlap.
Bitcoin is an online money. That's to say, you need to download mobile phone app to use such money. With above done, it generates a Bitcoin address. This address can only be used once. During the past few years, some of the world's biggest names in high-end fashion have begun to see children's clothes as a promising sideline with which to extract more value from their main business. Jean-Paul Gaultier, Chloe and John Galliano have all launched children's clothes lines. But for France's Bon Point, making kids' clothing is the main business. Since Bon Point was founded 40 years ago by clothes store owner Marie France and Bernard Cohen, children and babies have been at the center of the brand's development.
Your first draft is complete, but your paper is far from finished. The next step is to revise your paper, strengthen the content. Start this at least a week before your paper is due. In fact, you don't need to wait until you have a complete first draft to start revising. You can revise individual paragraphs as you finish them as well.
We know very little about wild pandas, because they are so rare and live in almost impenetrable forest. But in 2010 and 2011, Vanessa Hall of Michigan State University and her colleagues were given permission to attach GPS tracking collars to 5 pandas in the Wolong National Nature Reserve in China. The collars transmitted each animal's position every 4 hours for up to 2 years. The team found that the home ranges of individual pandas overlapped, and on a few occasions, 2 animals spent several weeks in close proximity. Sometimes the pandas were within or meters of each other, which suggests the pandas were in direct interaction, Hull says. Researchers surveyed more than young people about their eating habits when they surveyed the same group 5 years later, most of the teenagers were eating fewer fruits and vegetables. The researchers, led by Nikolai Larson of the University of Minnesota School of Public Health, found 2 dips in the intake of fruits and vegetables during the teenage years. The first occurred in early adolescence, when consumption went down by more than half a serving. The second came in late adolescence and was about the same size as the first.
Short-term memory SMT can hold information anywhere between seconds. According to Miller's magical number 7, short-term memory has a limited capacity, being able to store 2 items simultaneously. However, if we hear concepts or ideas repeatedly in an audio form, we can acoustically encode the information. It is a process referred to as rehearsal, thereby committing it to our long-term memories.
Aboard the ship Discovery, Hudson left England in April. He and his crew, which again included his son John and Robert Jewett, made their way across the Atlantic Ocean. After skirting the southern tip of Greenland, they entered what became known as the Hudson Strait. The exploration then reached another of his namesakes, the Hudson Bay.
Big Country Snake Removal responded to a home in Albany, Texas, after a man who was trying to restore his cable climbed under the house and saw some snakes. He saw a few snakes and quickly crawled out, said a post on Big Country Snake Removal's Facebook page. We arrived around lunchtime, and as soon as I crawled under, I could immediately see that there was far more than a few, the post said. The company ended up removing rattlesnakes from beneath the house.
The data to be reported here come from a longitudinal study of the untutored acquisition of English as a second language by a 5-year-old Japanese girl, whom we shall all see all Yugisu, Nightingale in Japanese. Her family came to the United States for a period of 2 years, while her father was a visiting scholar at Harvard, and they took residence in North Cambridge, a working-class neighborhood. The children in that neighborhood were her primary source of language input. Ugisu also attended public kindergarten for 2 hours every day and later elementary school, but with no tutoring in English syntax.
If you want to visit Mars, visit Turkey. That's where you'll find lakes so salty that the only bugs able to live there are species that could probably survive on Mars as well. For that reason, microbiologists in Turkey have surveyed the array of species that inhabit the Asagal, Salda, and Yarili lakes. They're hopeful that studying some of them will yield useful insights into the kinds of biology that could help microbes exist on Mars or other potentially habitable planets and moons.
Art history is the study of objects of art and their historical development and stylistic contexts. The study includes painting, sculpture, architecture, ceramics, furniture, and other decorative objects. It also sheds light on the history of different groups of people and their culture represented throughout their artwork. Art historians compare different time periods in art history. So, as a term, art history, its product being history of art, encompasses several methods of studying the visual arts, in common usage referring to works of art and architecture.
Australia's native plants and animals adapted to life on an isolated continent over millions of years. Since European settlement, they have had to compete with a range of introduced animals for habitat, food and shelter. Some have also had to face new predators. These new pressures have also caused a major impact on our country's soil and waterways, and on its native plants and animals.
Many people face serious financial crisis when they are only 20 to 30 years old. This is because they do not really pay attention to their daily spending and has poured their spending on buying. This will lead to them paying piling credit card loan and monthly payments. Although they can have student loan, people should try to minimize unnecessary expenditures while focusing more on savings.
The European Union has two big fish problems. One is that, partly as a result of its failure to manage them properly, its own fisheries can no longer meet European demand. The other is that its governments won't confront their fishing lobbies and decommission all the surplus boats. The EU has tried to solve both problems by sending its fishermen to West Africa. Since 1979, it has struck agreements with the government of Senegal, granting our fleets access to its waters. As a result, Senegal's marine ecosystem has started to go the same way as ours.
According to experts, feeding birds is probably the most common way in which people interact with wild animals today. More than 50 million Americans engage in the practice, collectively undertaking an unwitting experiment on a vast scale. Is what we're doing good or bad for birds? Recently, researchers at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology sought to answer this question, analyzing nearly 3 decades worth of data from a winter-long survey called Project FeederWatch. Preliminary results suggest the species visiting our feeders the most are faring exceptionally well in an age when 1/3 of the continent's birds need urgent conservation. Still, what are the consequences of skewing the odds in favor of the SM all-ale subset of species inclined to eat at feeders? What about when the bird we're aiding is invasive, like our house finch? Are there any systems that can measure the accounting system? Well, there is an accounting software described as a type of application software that records and processes accounting transactions within functional modules such as accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, and trial balance. This enables the access anywhere at any time with any device which is internet-enabled or may be desktop-based. It varies greatly in its complexity and cost. These tools combine together to provide quality customer service and create a climate of confidence, a customer service strategy that helps meet the specific needs. For more than 30 years, the prevailing view of the formation of our moon has been the giant impact hypothesis. The precursors to the current 4 rock planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, appear to have been dozens of smaller bodies known as planetary embryos. According to the giant impact hypothesis, our moon formed as the result of the last of a series of giant impact mergers between planetary embryos that eventually formed the Earth. In this last collision, one embryo was nearly Earth-sized and the other approximately Mars-sized.
In order to establish whether diversity matters in the sea as well as on land, 11 marine biologists, along with 3 economists, have joined forces. They have spent the past 3 years crunching all the numbers they could lay their hands on. These ranged from the current United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's database to information hundreds of years old, gleaned from kitchen records and archaeology. The results of their comprehensive analysis have been published in Science.
Vision and echolocation have many features in common. One narrow range of radiation, light in the case of vision, ultrasounds in the case of echolocation, provides information relevant to a wide variety of cognitive and practical goals. Why then is vision so common and echolocation so rare? Because in most environments, vision is much more effective. Echolocation is adaptive only in an ecological niche where vision is impossible or badly impaired, for instance, when dwelling in caves and hunting at night, as bats do.
In Montana, as elsewhere, companies that have acquired older mines respond to demands to pay for cleanup in either of 2 ways. Especially if the company is small, its owners may declare the company bankrupt, in some cases conceal its assets, and transfer their business efforts to other companies or to new companies that do not bear responsibility for cleanup at the old mine. If the company is so large that it cannot claim that it would be bankrupted by cleanup costs, the company instead denies its responsibility or else seeks to minimize the costs. In either case, either the mine site and areas downstream of it remain toxic, thereby endangering people, or else the US federal government and the Montana state government pay for the cleanup through the federal Superfund and a corresponding Montana state fund.
With the Arctic the fastest warming region on the planet, climate change is already altering key components of the Arctic environment. Some of the clearest signs of change are the thinning and retreat of sea ice and the migration of species into the Arctic that normally live at lower latitudes. The response of the Arctic to climate change will have an unprecedented impact on how the Arctic ecosystem operates. This is likely to affect the UK's climate and economy, with anticipated impacts on industries like tourism and fisheries.
Cameras help autonomous vehicles read street signs and the color of traffic lights. But LIDARs, aka light detection and ranging systems, do the important work of sensing and helping cars avoid obstacles, whether that's a fallen tree, drunk driver, or a child running out into the road. Now, a startup called Luminar Technologies Incorporate is unveiling a high-resolution LiDAR sensor that was 5 years in the making. The startup, which has raised $36 million in seed stage funding so far, built its LiDAR systems from scratch.
At 5:12 a.m. on April 18, 1906, the people of San Francisco were awakened by an earthquake that would devastate the city. The main tremor, having a 7.7 to 7.9 magnitude, lasted about 1 minute and was the result of the rupturing of the northernmost 296 miles of the 800-mile San Andreas Fault. But when calculating destruction, the earthquake took second place to the Great Fire that followed. The fire, lasting 4 days, most likely started with broken gas lines, and in some cases, was helped along by people hoping to collect insurance for their property. They were covered for fire, but not earthquake damage.
More recent missions to Mars include the hugely successful Mars Pathfinder, which landed a SMLO rover called Sojourner on the surface to explore a region where there may once have been life. Sojourner has now been effectively switched off, but lasted almost 12 times its expected lifetime. Similarly, the lander, which imaged several areas around the landing site, dubbed the Carl Sagan Memorial Site, and took atmospheric measurements, lasted a good deal longer than expected. The only unfortunate thing to have arisen from the mission is the naming of the rocks at the landing site, including everything from Scooby-Doo to Darth Vader.
It was there that Rosa Parks, an African-American woman, refused to vacate her seat in the middle of the bus so that a white man could sit in her place. She was arrested for her civil disobedience. Park's arrest, a coordinated tactic meant to spark a grassroots movement, succeeded in catalyzing the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks was chosen by King as the face for his campaign because of Park's good standing with the community, her employment, and her marital status. In many ways, the Montgomery bus boycott kicked off a national struggle to eliminate national discrimination, with King leading the way and ultimately become the nation's racial equality movement.
This site contains a comprehensive listing of the works of Norbert Elias, a German sociologist. The site lists not only his published books and articles, but also manuscripts and oral communications in a variety of media and including reprints and translations. The material has been catalogued, cross-referenced, and organized by date. There is, however, no search facility.
A review is a survey of what you have covered. It is a review of what you are supposed to accomplish, not what you are going to do. Rereading is an important part of the review process. Reread with the idea that you are measuring what you have gained from the process.
Beginning in the 1990s, foreign aid had begun to slowly improve. Scrutiny by the news media shamed many developed countries into curbing their bad practices. Today, the projects of organizations like the World Bank are meticulously inspected by watchdog groups. Although the system is far from perfect, it is certainly more transparent than it was when foreign aid routinely helped ruthless dictators stay in power.